we know that the one-to-one learning impacts because now I have another learning tool to continue learning away from school. But I want us to be careful that it is not a problem solver all by itself, because we still have to have internet access and still that face-to-face learning is so critical to the success of students.
You're listening to the smartsocial.com podcast. I'm your host, Josh Ochs. This is our District Talk segment where we interview district leaders to learn how they're keeping students safe on social media so those students can someday shine online. Now, let's get back to the interview.
Hi, Josh. Good morning. My name is Luis Valentino, and I am the superintendent of the Coachella Valley Unified School District, and we're located in the Coachella Valley, 2 hours east of Los Angeles. We have approximately 17,000 students in an area covering 1,200 square miles.
Hello, my name is Dr. Lamar Goree. I serve as superintendent of Caddo Parish Public Schools. The primary hub of Caddo Parish Public Schools is Shreveport, Louisiana. We're a system of about 35,000 students, serving them in 55 schools.
Hi, I'm William Wright, superintendent of Sumter School District in South Carolina. We are in the southeastern part of the United States. Sumter School District is pretty much in the center of the state of South Carolina, and we have 27 schools that serve close to 15,000 students.
How has the prevalence of technology in the classroom impacted student learning and engagement?
So it's become a continuous shift of how we work with students. The pandemic had an impact on that as well, because it accelerated things that we weren't prepared for, such as how to teach virtually, how to maximize the use of a tool like the iPad, your iPhone, and even your laptop. And so what it forced us to do is to accelerate the professional development for our teachers, as well as changing the narrative around where information comes from for students, right? When the internet was introduced, all of a sudden it was a game changer because now students had access to information that didn't come from the teacher or the textbook. And with AI, what it has done, it has accelerated access to that, not only of how they receive information, but how they produce information. And so during the pandemic, that brought the opportunity to get them used to using the technology differently. So now teachers have to use the technology differently as well.
You know, one thing I will say is that the prevalence of technology and the use of technology in the classroom has totally transformed what teachers do in the classroom, and certainly what students learn. Their opportunity, the technology is provided for students to have just that ready, quick access to information has truly transformed what we've done in schools. And what we've had to do is make sure that we've supported teachers as they've utilized this technology as a tool to really help students to broaden and to access information quicker.
It has been a game changer for us in terms of understanding clearly that education is enhanced by technology. The pandemic taught us that on speed, if you will, but throughout education, we knew that we could enhance learning with technology, and now we understand that it is clearly an essential part of life. Our job as educators is to continue to make sure that we are impacting learning through all media, which include technology, of course.
How can school districts deal with social media issues that may originate on a social media app, but then might create a big problem on campus or for the district, whether it's that same day or Monday morning when we're back on campus?
In order to address a problem that emerges, people have to understand what the expectations have been. And that begins early elementary school when now with the extensive use of technology, that we have our user policy has to be really explicit, and it has to be really clear what the consequences are. But then every year at the beginning of the school year, as the distribution of technology happens, how it can and can't be used, how it should and shouldn't be used becomes a conversation in the classroom. And that conversation really leads to asking the harder questions of students, especially those students who are known to either bully or be bullied, which happens beginning in middle school pretty much. And so those conversations really lead to an understanding of the positive uses of that technology, so that when it is not used the way it is supposed to, it becomes really clear that there has been a violation of that policy.
The introduction of social media and how it's influenced education is a double-edged sword. I truly do believe that school systems need to work within policy and certainly within practice to make sure that we do everything we can to take advantage of the many positive things that social media can bring to the classroom. I think at the same time, we have to be aware of those things, such as cyberbullying and things that often happen on technology, and make sure that we do everything to protect from those things. But the last thing we need to do is to allow those negative influences to prevent us from taking full advantage of the many advantages that social media and that ability to instantly communicate and the ability to transfer information quickly provides to teachers and to students in the learning environment.
All districts across the nation, first of all, are experiencing this issue. The first thing that we have to do is make sure that we have people that are monitoring behavior, and we have to be very proactive in terms of addressing issues. School districts moving forward, in fact, are going to have to employ people who are a bit of investigative social media people, if you will, with those sole responsibilities, because it is coming more and more a relevant part of what we do every day. And fortunately, in most cases, if you are proactive and if you address the issues head on, right now it has been a manageable situation because school districts are being proactive.
Can you provide some examples of maybe how some students have used their social media accounts in a positive, in a productive manner that may have benefited themselves or their community?
So they have used it both as part of their efforts to be good citizens of the community by highlighting and surfacing problems that exist in the community, right? They inform each other of a number of issues. We have had a walkout, and there was good reason for the walkout in hindsight, right? Not at the moment, but certainly in hindsight it was. And what social media did, it informed them of why they were going to be walking out of campus, when and how, and what the expectations were in their behavior and how they were going to do that. Now, some teachers have also used social media with students under projects, project-based learning, for example. They use it to connect to current issues that connect back to what they're learning in the classroom and the project or assignment that they have in class. And so there have been examples of how our district's Facebook page, for example, has been used to communicate with each other around academics, which is great because the public then gets to read how students are actually using the technology appropriately for their learning.
I think there are several great examples. When I think about positive examples of how our students have used social media, I'm reminded of the fifth grade class who solves math problems on their social media, and they actually share different ideas about how they actually solve the problems, and that's a part of their homework. I think about even how some of our high school students communicate with their teachers and have group chats around social media and how they are discussing books and things of that nature while they're at home. I really think about things during the COVID experience and how our students really stayed engaged and how we really utilized social media to increase communications among stakeholders while we were going through that pandemic. So obviously that instant communication, even things such as how we communicate our weather days now, long gone are the days where we have the trees where you call one teacher, then you call the next teacher. We just put it on social media and everyone gathers it from there. So there's so many different opportunities administratively as well as instructionally that our work as educators have enriched because of social media.
What we have here, we use Sprigio, which is a software that identifies bullying or threats or problems. I can speak of some specific situations where children have identified other students who may have had issues or may have been experiencing issues, in which they use those sites to identify and contact the right people, which allowed us to be able to intervene. And without going into specifics, we've had children that were intending on harming themselves that we have been able to intervene and get the proper people in place to be able to keep them from doing so. And as much as bullying from one student to another is a prevalent piece that we have to look at. In addition to that, we have to make sure that we're also looking at internal or self-harm and ways to prevent that. And social media sometimes our monitoring of social media will help us be able to solve those problems.
In the age of one-to-one, how are you preparing students for positive technology use in the classroom?
One of the things that happened, so I arrived after the pandemic, but when I was in Portland, Oregon, as I shared with you, one of the things that happened, the technology got ahead of our ability to communicate to students appropriate use of that, because from one day to the other, our districts were closed right across the country. And so as technology was distributed, a lot of that learning happened once they began to use it. And so it made it also difficult for teachers because they themselves had not had the opportunity to get up to speed with it. And so we've had to catch up with that by ensuring that we formalize a lot of the documentation about how the technology is supposed to be used, how to handle emergencies when someone hacks into your system. All of those conversations have happened as we go because we were not able to prepare ourselves to communicate that out ahead of time. But now that we've formalized it, it has allowed us to really leverage what has been learned through its I don't want to say improper use, but it's pretty much random use, initially policies that have now helped us to inform students and our staff how to use the technology appropriately.
So I do believe when you talk about one-to-one deployment, and even sometimes I call it a 0.5 deployment, because I think most people have multiple devices at this time, whether that's a laptop and a cell phone, or, whether that's a desktop and a cell phone. People have multiple devices. But I do believe that we have to make sure that we're effectively integrating and designing lessons that do incorporate those devices. I think the pandemic certainly prepared school systems, and really not in preparing, for school systems to get very, very much in touch with what one-to-one deployments and what that actually looks like in the school system. I do believe we are better because of those deployments. Some of the challenges, of course, it creates is keeping up with the ever-changing technology. But I do think that this has forced us as school systems to change the way we think about things such as textbooks. And it's really enriched the process because you can now change a textbook in a matter of a second that would have been dated for probably 10 years. So I think how we're enriching that process for students and teachers is going to be incredible, and really look forward to continuing to see technology be utilized to create more real-time opportunities, to create more real-time educational experiences for students.
Well, first of all, we understand that one-to-one is only as good as the ability to have internet access when students are away from school. So in a district like ours that is about 50% rural, we have challenges still with internet accessibility in our rural areas in particular. So for us, we understand the need for one-to-one, and we certainly work with trying to provide Chromebooks or computers, laptops for each student in the district. We are a one-to-one district, but we need help. The help that we need is with infrastructure, making sure that there is accessibility. People talk about hotspots. Hotspots do help in some cases, but you still have to have internet accessibility in order to be able to do so. So we know that the one-to-one learning impacts because now I have another learning tool to continue learning away from school. But I want us to be careful that it is not a problem solver all by itself, because we still have to have internet access, and still that face-to-face learning is so critical to the success of students.
Thanks for listening to our smartsocial.com podcast. I'm your host, Josh Ochs. This was our District Talk segment where we interview school district leaders to learn how they're keeping students safe on social media so those students can someday launch into their future by shining online. This episode was brought to you by our smartsocial.com VIP program. It's called the Very Informed Parent Program, which helps you engage your students with teen-led video lessons. Stay one step ahead with our premium parent newsletter and discover hidden features on trending apps on teens' phones and our 54 plus live parent and student-friendly events every single year. You can click on the link below to chat with one of our team members if you want a free pass to our VIP program to support your community with our smartsocial.com resources. And if you're a district leader who has a success story, we would love to feature you on a future episode. You can click the links below to reach out. Thanks so much for listening, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Have a great day.